So basically, what I'll try to tell you is a little bit about TBC Bank and Group, and then the key topics of our digital accents we were doing in the last years, and then a little bit of a deep dive into a fintech initiative we launched in several years ago, and which became international 2 years ago, and we covered already several countries. And this all is about our digital capabilities, basically, and then of course we can dive into the questions. So firstly, about TBC. TBC is the biggest banking group in our region, in Georgia and in Caucasus, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan. We are listed in London. We are a member of the FTSE 250 index, premium listed in London, and basically this is our performance metrics. I won't dive into all of them, but we are excellent in terms of return on equity. We consistently show very strong growth on our loan book and deposit book, and generally the business is consistently over many years growing and gaining market shares in Georgia. In terms of market shares, we have around 40% in various segments and products of Georgian banking market. And historically, we've been very strong in retail, corporate, and MSME business. So in all the segments, we lead the market in terms of market shares. In terms of strategic priorities of the group, basically, these are the key accents which we communicate. Firstly, it's of course to maintain robust profitability and very strong balance sheet. And then, of course, we put a lot of accent on diversifying our revenue streams and especially moving into the services to our customers where we generate fee income. The biggest accent of last year's was digital transformation, digital capabilities, and accordingly, customer experience and efficiency of our operations. Of course, we are mainly at this point in time focused in Georgia, present in Georgia. So we need to keep the group's performance up to the level. We need to concentrate and somehow create a steady growth in Georgia. And then afterwards, several years ago, we announced a strategic priority of going international, where the first biggest market for us, second in terms of internationalization, but the first biggest in terms of total addressable market was Uzbekistan. So we need to deliver high growth in Uzbekistan, considering especially its stage of development and the potential it delivers. And all this, of course, has been somehow growing out of our very strong push into digitalization back in 2012-13, where we first started launching products of mobile banking channels and products through mobile banking and internet banking, basically. And by this, we massively went into digitalization, so to say, of all our customer service activities. This is something which I'm sure everybody has come across somehow in our business, in our industry in the last years. I mean the word ecosystem approach, right? Where banks started looking at their business in terms of the ecosystem they deliver these businesses in. And then we understood also, and this started basically for TBC approximately in 2016, where we started to think about how can we be a part of customers' daily life. So how can we integrate ourselves into the daily life of our customers in a way that basically they feel TBC on every step. At the same time, they see that TBC supports them. And to an extent, we tried to put customers in the middle and understand around them what are the daily activities, what are the needs the customers have, and how much are we integrated in those flows. Now, of course, banking and financial services is just one of the verticals, right? So if you would look at a standard customer, I mean, let's look at our own self, right? Every morning we do payments, We use transport, right? We maybe, I mean, are in the process of finding for ourselves a housing. We do education for us or for our family members, right? We read lots of digital content. Of course, we use other financial services like loans, credit cards, all this kind of stuff. So what we basically did is we understood what are the verticals in Georgia, and we started slowly integrating, right? Here, what you see is the TBC group as a whole. Basically, these are all the brands and accordingly the verticals where we are present. Basically, let's just count them. Like lifestyle, where we have, for instance, the biggest, and I will mention the most non-standard, how to say, platforms which we own. For instance, we have maib, which is one of the biggest travel services in Georgia. We have Saba, which is the biggest e-reader, so the e-book service. We have more than 70,000 customers, monthly active customers reading on our platform. We have ticketing service, the biggest one in Georgia, called ticket.ge, and discounting, like if you remember, there is a portal called Groupon. In our case, it's called Swoop, where we offer the discounts on various services on a daily basis. Of course, we have health vertical, where our own TBC insurance is providing health services in partnership with various clinics. But then in times of, I mean, it was actually before COVID, we launched a very interesting app. Georgia has lots of immigrants in various countries, and not all speak the local language where they reside. And mostly, I mean, psychologically, they prefer talking to a Georgian doctor as a first consultation. So we launched RedMed, which is an app which allows distant application-based consultations with the doctors in Georgia. So you can book your doctor visit over the app and have a video call and certain procedures, and you pay within the app. So, and so on and so on. In housing, for instance, we have, of course, insurance of real estate, but then we have the biggest platform for housing transactions. Would it be rent? Would it be buying an apartment, selling an apartment, and so on and so on. Education, we have the platform TBC Academy for private individuals, and then we have TBC Business Academy, which is for businesses. In terms of mobility, for instance, we have the biggest, I guess it's also the biggest in the region in terms of auto platform, where people can buy, sell, rent the cars. And I won't go into every service, but basically we have many platforms which to an extent surround the customer in the daily life, and the customer has the chance to feel TBC and the brand TBC on every step. And this, of course, creates the feeling that TBC is very much supporting the daily life of the customer, because these are not only loans, right, where the customer pays interest. And of course, we know that credit is not the best customer experience product, right? Because when people get the loan, then afterwards it is somehow a burden, and people are not very much happy about this product. The NPS scores for loans are always the lowest. But if you see it now, this ecosystem, you understand that we can provide many other services, fee-generating services, where we create only positive feedback and only positive NPS, so to say, of course, if done in the right way. Now, where does this somehow connect to the financial services, and what is one of the hidden, so to say, values behind? And slowly I will be moving also to the decision of internationalization. Is basically that on the left-hand side, and these are Georgia only figures here. We have 1.7 million users, and I will remind the audience that in Georgia, population is 3.8 million people. So 1.7 million users we have on the platforms, and where we have all these platforms, right? Shopping platforms or marketplaces and so on, I won't repeat. And on the right-hand side, we have financial services, where we have 2.7 million registered users. So now this almost is every family has a TBC customer, right? Now, how do we use this? In between, we have TBC Connect, a business which is data analytics business, where basically we try to create a data hub where we do the analytics and try to improve customers' experience one more time by providing them relevant content, relevant offering, relevant value proposition, which of course makes the customers even happier. And we have our own mission statement, which states to make people's life easier. And this is exactly one more time showing that, if you do the analysis properly and if you understand the customer's behavior properly, then basically you can be relevant. And by relevance, you at the end make the customer's life easier. Now, there is one big constraint in Georgia, which is the population, right? Because the total addressable market cannot be the whole population. It is smaller. So having 2.7 million users, for instance, on the banking side means that most probably we have every possible customer registered in our database. Now, of course, the activity rates are smaller. I don't remember now by heart, but monthly active are around 1.5 or a bit more, I guess, users. But still, this is also, maximum levels considering also our market share. So what do we do next? Of course, we are improving and creating the stable growth foundation in Georgia, but are not we grow somewhere else? And this is exactly where the question of internationalization of TBC came into play, because we understood that if we are that good in Georgia, we can also be good elsewhere. And why don't we venture into another market and try ourselves, try if we can do that, and if we can do it in a way which is competitive, which is differentiating, and which is successful at the end. So basically, we said, in our region, and let's call in the former Soviet space, we basically have several big countries. And some countries are very much penetrated. Some countries are less penetrated. If you take from Georgia to the east, we have Central Asia, where basically we have the biggest countries, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Kazakhstan is a very, penetrated and developed market where we have very strong players. One of them being my former employer, Kaspi Bank, right, which did a fantastically successful IPO back, I guess, already 2 years ago. And then we have Uzbekistan, which basically went into reforms and modernization starting from 2016, if I remember correctly. So it was offering, and it is twice bigger than Kazakhstan, 35 million people. To the west, of course, we have Russia, Ukraine. Of course, Russia for Georgia is not the best choice because of many reasons. Plus, it is very much developed in terms of technologies and banking market, and Ukraine, which is also very developed in terms of banking market. So we said, basically, in all these options, in terms of big addressable market, Uzbekistan seems to be at the best place. And plus comes on top that Uzbekistan started to liberalize its economy and open it up for external investors just in 2016. So it was offering a tremendous potential for external players to come in and try to position themselves, plus 35 million people population. So we said, and another important and interesting statistic is that Uzbekistan's average age is 29 years. Now, this was the thing. Now, before Uzbekistan and before internationalization, there was another small thing starting up, which somehow explains the statement on the upper side of my slide: develop once and deploy many times. And then afterwards comes the word digital banking as a service platform. And I will explain it on the next slide, which is the question what. So what did we develop? In 2018, this was approximately around the time when we started to think about internationalization, where we all remember and know, of course, big brands like, I don't know, Number 26 in Germany or Revolut in UK, Monzo, and so on and so on. And I was in touch with Number 26 guys back then on a certain occasion. And basically, we thought, why don't we do something similar in Georgia? Now, Rationale, in Georgia, we have 40% market share. We were just out of the transaction of acquiring the third biggest player in the country from Societe Generale. So we became even bigger. And why spending our energy and time on creating a neobank, a mobile application only bank, which will of course do something in Georgia. Georgia being a very small country, scaling being problem in Georgia, especially having this developed banking sector. So why creating something like this? And we said, two reasons. One is, creating your own competitor in digital area. And secondly, maybe using it afterwards for internationalization. And basically we launched and under a totally separate brand, this is to mention, called Space, you see the logo in the middle. We launched a neobank in 2018, which now has 1.3 million registered users and is present in 2 countries. And I will jump to the use case here on this slide. So as I mentioned, what was the rationale? It was challenge to our own self, try to understand if suddenly somebody jumps into our market and creates a neobank, what would be the pressure? And then we created this pressure by our own selves. An innovation lab of products, because for instance, the first digital onboarding, fully digital onboarding was launched in the country, was launched based on Space platform. We did a great collaboration that time with our national bank. And then testing the opportunity of launching Space in other markets. And again, we had good examples of this. I mentioned number 26 back then. Number 26, I guess, was venturing into US. And we said, the structure would be that it is developed once and deployed many times in different locations. So the knowledge center would be in Georgia, but the operations would be in different jurisdictions. And this is exactly the column in the middle, how we are organized. So basically we have the local core banking system, meaning that the core banking system on which a bank, in Georgia it was TBC, the hosting bank, and in Uzbekistan it is again TBC, would work on local core banking, and then the API layer, which basically surrounds the Space platform and Space channels, which are integrated into the local core banking system, and this is how the connection is being performed. Now the services provided by Space platform are business services, so it's not only technology, meaning product strategy, digital marketing is fully done from Georgia to Uzbekistan in our concrete case, business analytics and commercial reporting, and then IT services, IML and risk management services are all in Georgia, and from Georgia they're delivered to Uzbekistan. Of course, in Uzbekistan we have our own team, as we are having our own bank and banking license. So we can split the team in 2 parts. One team which is making sure that the financial institution, the bank works in a way it should work. And the second team, which is working on localizing basically the Space platform into Uzbekistan, right? I mean, working closely with Space team to somehow deliver the products of Space platform to Uzbekistan. Now, the results so far for the platform is that, as I mentioned on the previous slide too, is 2 countries. I guess now the registered users are about 1.5 million, but I don't remember the exact figure. We have in 2 countries already 1,000 team members, and I'll explain why so, because to some people it may sound a lot, but there is one insight why we have so many people, and we are already on the market, which has a total addressable, so-called TAM, total addressable market of 40 million people, which is huge and which gives a lot of upside. These are in terms of figures, basically how, and I don't think it's proved yet. We need another year, but I think it is a typical hockey stick chart, right? I mean, the famous hockey stick chart, where the growth is taking up for successful startups. Because I think having already, in 2 markets, firstly being in several years in 2 markets and having so many registered customers, and then accordingly the conversion, so many so many downloads, then so many registered, and then so many monthly active. I mean, this tells basically that we are doing something right at the first stage. Of course, we have to continue that going forward. This is basically the development. As I mentioned, I won't dive more into the story. In Uzbekistan, we had another very important development, and I guess just 1 second. Yeah, I'll come to this one. So let me now talk a little bit more about Uzbekistan. So in Uzbekistan, the first visit, I guess, it was in 2017, where actually we went there and we understood the market and decided that we are entering. And the person who basically took, I mean, the word responsibility is not showing the thing enough, right? They took the challenge and the load of venturing into Uzbekistan was actually your colleague who works now in Moldova, Georgi Shagidze, a very good friend of mine and colleague at TBC, who is the CEO of maib. And Georgi was the one who basically put the flag in Uzbekistan for TBC because the team launched the bank there. So it was nothing. It was a greenfield bank decision. And the team went there and basically created the banking institution. Then afterwards, we went inside and launched the banking platform space. And currently, as I said, we have several businesses in Uzbekistan. And there is another very, very important story, and I will come to that in a second. So the bank, I mentioned the figures. It is the first digital bank in Uzbekistan. When I say digital, I mean digital. There is not a single customer-facing or back-end process which is done manually. Everything is done automatized, digitalized, everything end-to-end. So there is no such thing as back office, for instance. I mean, there is not a single employee who processes the transactions. So the whole thing is working digitally through the app. We don't have anything else than the app. So there is no channel, no ATM, no kiosks, no branches. And on this next slide, I will show you something about the physical presence, but I'll explain you that this is not a branch. We call it showrooms. Moving to the next box, upper right is Pay Me. This is also Georgi's project because when we went there, we were trying to understand how we solve the greenfield bank problem, because when you are launching a greenfield bank, the challenge you have is customer acquisition. And this is the biggest risk at the same time, because if you are not good enough in quickly acquiring the customers, then you face the risk of not acquiring them afterwards at all, or the cost being very, very high. So, and we went around and we understood that on Uzbekistani market, we have several very big payment apps. Payment apps, to explain in 2 words, is you have an e-wallet or you link your payment card issued by any bank to the payment app, and then the payment app delivers you a very slick and nice experience for payments, QR payments, P2P payments, bill payments, utility payments, all this stuff. And then you're using for your daily financial payment needs this app. So there were several apps, and we at the end entered the biggest one in terms of application. I mean, this is and was back then the biggest payment app on the market. And now, which is the brand name is Pay Me, and we are the majority shareholders, which has now 5.2 million users. So of course there are overlaps, but if you take in Uzbekistan, TBC Group has now already 6.5 million users, registered users to an extent, which is huge for third year of operation or 3.5 years of operation. And the strategic rationale I will show you a bit later. Then we also launched Vendu. Vendu is the BNPL, Buy Now, Pay Later, separate company, which has, at this point, it has 170 approximately points of sale, and we are expanding it further, and it will deliver it. Now it is offline, but now we are integrating it into PayMe and TBC, so it will have also online product. And then we launched Ticket.uz in Uzbekistan case. If you remember, I mentioned we have the biggest ticketing platform in Georgia, so we started by this slowly expanding our platforms to Uzbekistan. And hopefully we will manage to expand them further. Ticket2 was stopped for a while. We are now thinking of relaunching it because of COVID, obviously, but because there were no events, right? But now, as Uzbekistan is also coming back from COVID restrictions, we see clearly that we have to relaunch it. So now we operate these 4 companies in the country, and this all happened in 3-4 years maximum. So starting from 2018, I guess, where we actively starting entering the market. So, I mean, just a quick recap, 4 key pillars for success in launching a digital bank. And I think these are really the 4 key ones. Is the customer acquisition is #1 priority. If you don't acquire customers quickly, then it will either cost too much or it will not be possible because others are waking up and they are also trying to acquire customers. Strong focus on positioning. Many people do not spend money on marketing, and marketing is of utmost importance. So if you do not quickly position yourself on the market, then you won't be able to position, and this translates into customer acquisition costs. The right sequence of launching products, because if you, for instance, one of the insights is we did not start with loan. And now, of course, we launched the loan, but positioning-wise, marketing-wise, we did not start with loans. Why? Because loan, as I mentioned, is a negative NPS product. And if you want to create trust and transparency feeling and a good, good emotional touch with customers, you have to start with something else. Now, what the other neobanks in Europe did, they started with transactional banking. We said, we want to lend, this is where the margins come from. So we need liquidity, local currency liquidity. So we started with deposits. By this, created trust, and basically, then we launched actively deposit loan communication. Sorry. So basically, this is the end-to-end digital and physical, and this is where I'll come to the channels. We said, you know, yes, we have to be a digital bank. All this pressure that, I mean, if you are digital, you cannot have offline presence. But at the end of the day, nobody knows exactly what digital means. I mean, for me, this means one. For the others, it means second. What we said is, if we need offline customer acquisition channels, why don't we create these customer acquisition channels? Plus, on top, if we want to have deposits, why don't we create the sense of trust, especially in the countries where digitalization is quite new? Sense of trust, for instance, in banking, right? I mean, if you want to put deposits somewhere, people want to come and touch the brand, physically touch it, you know, that they will pass by with a car and say, you know, here in this shop, in this place, I have my deposit. Now, if he comes in this outlet, we don't have anything which is typical to banking branch. We don't have cash desks, we don't have ATMs, we don't have cash in kiosks, we don't have anything at all. So the employees of the branch, we call them showrooms, have the only target to show how the application works, nothing else. So on these iPads, which you see there, the only thing the employee can do is to guide the customer through the process of onboarding, nothing else. Of course, we are onboarding 90, even more, I think, % of our customers fully digitally, and then the couriers deliver the card maximum in 2 days to any place of our presence, and we are now covering approximately 90% of Uzbekistani population. And then we have this upper right corner, small islands, we call them, in the big shopping malls, where again, you know, we are promoting our brand, our product, and we are trying to help the customers to understand how to onboard. So we call it phygital, physical and digital. Now in Uzbekistan, as I said, the vision why we need PayMe, right, and what is the synergy. On one hand, we have a first digital bank which will offer financial services. And this is Space app, which in Uzbekistan is positioned as TBC Bank. And we will be positioning everywhere we go the Space platform as TBC, because this is the banking group we own and we run and we are developing. But on the other hand, in each country, we may have customer pools. And this is exactly where PayMe comes in. So PayMe is a massive in terms of customer base, and PayMe Plus is differently regulated than the bank. If the bank cannot venture into non-banking activities, PayMe can do so. So if PayMe will be the ecosystem of certain verticals which we think makes sense, and now for visualization, basically we have lifestyle, travel, events, education, right, marketplaces, shopping, and so on and so on. Basically, the bank will provide financial vertical, and this is how the whole thing will be tied. So PayMe will serve as an ecosystem play, and the app will serve as a digital banking play. Yes. Now, coming to the end of my presentation, basically, we said back several years ago that by the end of 2023, we want to have 10 million users, and possibly in 4 countries by 2025. And now, if we look, we are 1 year from the end of 2023, or a bit more, and we have almost 10 million users. If you add up all the figures, you will come to that figure. So basically, we are good on the target, and this all has been achieved massively through digitalization and through how to say, fintech instruments. And by this, I'm finishing. Thanks a lot for listening.